So firstly, a big thank you for taking some time out. Wow, look at all these people for joining us today. My name is Justine. I'm Head of Training at Finwell, and I'm here today in conjunction with Mental Health First Aid England and Ripple, supporting Financial Wellbeing Month. And if you haven't already had a chat with us, you can chat with us behind here after we've finished today. But I'm delighted to be joined by a couple of our key speakers today. So Natasha, say hello, Natasha.
Hello, everybody.
Natasha is the Head of Health and Wellbeing at Devon, Cornwall and Dorset Police, and Hannah's going to share her insights from a financial wellbeing perspective today. And I've also got the lovely Hannah. Hi, Hannah.
Hello.
Hannah's our Head of Wellbeing at Hayes Recruitment. Again, done lots of work in this space, so I'm really excited to be introducing this topic, which is all about how to support colleagues in the workplace through utilising financial wellbeing, mental health first aiders and champions across the board, okay? So that's what we're going to be touching on today. So I'm going to start off with asking both the ladies to share with us some of the challenges that you see or have seen in recent years when it comes to financial wellbeing and how that fits into the mental health agenda. So Natasha, I'm going to you first. So tell us a bit about what you know from your work at the police.
Okay, thank you, Justine. Yeah, so obviously being in the public sector, financial pressures, financial wellbeing is a huge issue for us. I'm part of a small team and we have to cover all areas of wellbeing, but as far as we're concerned, financial wellbeing is a really important key part of that. The cost of living has risen, as we all know, by a huge amount, and our wages really haven't, certainly not in comparison, not in the public sector. So yeah, and within the police specifically, there's an extra pressure around people feeling unable to come forward if they are starting to struggle with debt, that they feel that their vetting might be taken away from them. Can they continue doing the job that they've been doing for a long time? There's definitely still a real stigma and taboo around putting your hand up and saying, do you know what, I'm really struggling with my finances. And any one of us, as we know, at any time can suddenly find that we're in a real difficult situation around our finances because of divorce or, all sorts of different reasons. So yeah, it's something that we've absolutely had to look at and consider and just try and find different ways to encourage people to come forward and have those initial conversations, but also to educate themselves right the way through our organisation, from people that are, joining in their early 20s and again, really struggling in terms of finding somewhere to live, and all of those challenges that we all face. But obviously when they're first starting in the police, the wages are, much lower. So again, trying to educate them and look at different ways that they can manage, whether it's pensions or mortgages or just your day-to-day debt management.
Brilliant. And is there any unique challenges in the police, Natasha? Because obviously they see a lot of trauma in the jobs that they do, and I guess suicide as well. So that must play into this.
Absolutely. So there's without a doubt there is a link between suicide and mental health and financial well-being. Again, there can be all sorts of police officers are facing trauma every single day, often multiple times a day. If they then on top of that got at the back of their mind, I'm struggling with debt, I'm really struggling to pay my mortgage.
Yeah.
To be able to come forward and say that when they're already really struggling with those daily traumas is a really, really difficult thing. So again, I kind of feel like it's a thread that runs all the way through it.
Yeah, I would agree. Brilliant, thank you. And I'm going to ask the same question. Hannah, I know we've worked together for quite a while, but what are some of the challenges you're seeing in the recruitment industry and your colleagues are facing when it comes to financial wellbeing and mental health?
Yeah. So really to echo everything that has already been said in terms of cost of living, of course, that's impacting us all. I suppose the additional challenge we face in my industry is that we have a variable pay structure. So it's a sales-based organisation. People are rewarded on the basis of their success. And you only have to take a look at the job market at the moment to know that the industry is tough right now. It's difficult. So even those that are very good at their role as a recruitment consultant are potentially not making as many placements as they were previously. And of course, that therefore impacts what they take home in terms of earnings. There's a double-edged sort of stigma attached to that. Natasha's already alluded to the fact that financial well-being, I think, is still that last taboo. I think we are more openly talking about mental health than we are financial well-being. And in our industry sector, that can also be synonymous with underperformance. So that gives another angle, which just makes it even more difficult potentially for people to come forward and ask for help or support in this field. So much like Natasha, we've been looking at all the different aspects of financial well-being to really try and unpick, where do we start with this? What do we need to do? And how do we keep an eye on what's going on in the wider context of the market so that we can make sure that we are still continuing to add new things in that are going to be relevant when it comes to supporting people's financial well-being.
Brilliant. And I think, Hannah, I think it's fair to say from a recruitment point of view, when you've got volatile earnings that, are not a fixed amount necessarily each month, makes it really difficult for people to budget. That's a big
it really does. And even in the good times, that's difficult, right? Because we have young people coming in who all of a sudden are earning a decent amount of money and thinking, wow, this is absolutely brilliant, and going off and spending it all. And then 2 months later, not earning very much at all. So that, combined with even the fact that we pay people every 4 weeks rather than every month, means that payday's never on the same date. It's not towards the end of the month. You've got to manage your finances slightly differently to make sure you've got enough in the bank when your mortgage goes out or your rent or whatever it might be. So some of those basic money management skills have been incredibly valuable.
Okay. And the other thing, I know we've worked on this, is the other end of the spectrum, maybe with higher earners or people that are earning large bonuses, for example, and perhaps not making the wisest of choices with regards to that. So it works both ways, doesn't it? Both in terms of low wage, but also high.
Yeah, and I think that's a journey we've really been on in making everyone within our organisation recognise that financial well-being is important to everybody. It doesn't mean the same thing to everybody, but it doesn't matter whether you're working out how you're going to pay your bills each month or in the fortunate position where you've got lots of extra cash each month. You still need to think about your financial well-being, and everybody could do something to improve their financial well-being.
Yeah, definitely. Go on.
Just to add to that, I would say that it's similar in our organisation, even those officers who are the higher ranks, who are perhaps earning good money, again, through no fault of their own, maybe it's through divorce or, all sorts of other reasons, it's really difficult for them to then put their hand up and say, I'm struggling, because they're seen as, they're on a pedestal, people look up to them, and and also overtime budgets, again, have been really slashed. So again, people who have been in the police maybe a long time, have been used to earning a certain amount of overtime, they include that in their financial planning, assuming that that's going to carry on, and then all of a sudden it's stopped. So, again, there's so many different variables.
Definitely. Now, I want to move on and talk a little bit about supporting colleagues within the workforce. And in particular, I'm very passionate about upskilling champions and network groups. And I want to be able to help mental health first aiders know what to do from a finance point of view. And this is an area that we've learnt over the last 3 years, that we've done lots in the mental health wellbeing space, and most organisations will have some kind of network group, champions, mental health first aiders. But actually, when you talk to those people, they don't know how to help people with their finances. They don't know where to signpost. If someone came up to you and said, I'm up to my eyes in debt and I've been gambling for the last 3 years, would you know what to do? So we're really passionate about exploring how to make the most of some of these colleagues internally. So tell me a little bit, Hannah, I'm going to come to you first. What have you done in Hayes, and why is it important to use these network groups to support colleagues, not just from a mental health point of view?
Okay, so we have a few different ERGs, so employee resource groups or network groups, that we have specifically addressed the issue of financial wellbeing with. So we have looked at it through the lens of women and money. We have looked at our LGBTQ plus community. We have started to look at neurodiversity as an example. We're also looking at men and money. We also have a mental health first aid network, and we have ensured that we have a selection of people in that network who are also trained as FinWell wellbeing champions, because that isn't something that's covered in the mental health first aid training. That it's not mental ill health, it's not depression, it's not anxiety, but we know that the two are very closely linked. We've done that because we think that's really important from a inclusion perspective. And actually, this is one of the ways in which wellbeing, mental health, diversity, equity, inclusion really fuses together, because when you start to take into account intersectionality, it is even more important that you can access people who perhaps need the support even more, because they're facing more complex factors that are impacting their well-being, and in particular their financial well-being. So upskilling those communities to be able to know what to do next. And this isn't about having the answers to fix somebody's financial well-being issues or stresses at any given moment in time. It's about being able to have a compassionate conversation and about being able to effectively signpost. And there's an abundance of resources that you can signpost people to, many of which are completely free of charge. But it's about having those trusted sources of information available and your various networks being aware of them and knowing how to help people access those services.
And Hannah, upskilling people internally, colleagues are not going to be going to their managers and saying, I've got a gambling problem or I'm in debt. So having that peer-to-peer support is probably more crucial.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think, again, that's where networks are important, because they are representative of all different aspects of our workforce. And the focus very much in an ERG is on inclusion, right? Not diversity. And therefore people are able to talk to somebody who they might feel more comfortable with. But I think representation at all levels is important, because, as Natasha's just alluded to, just because somebody is more senior in the organisation doesn't mean they're not going to have issues that impact their financial well-being. And actually, earning a lot of money is one thing, but having a massive mortgage and private school fees and everything else that goes with it might still mean that you end up with very little at the end of the month. So I think it's really important that you are completely inclusive when you think about your financial well-being strategy.
Okay. And Natasha, in terms of what you've done in this space, I know you do a lot in this space. What sort of things have you been doing, and what's the response been so far?
Yeah, so our very small wellbeing team covers around 6,000 staff across Devon, Cornwall and Dorset Police. So we're an alliance team. So obviously 6,000 staff, it's incredibly diverse. We've got to make sure that we are supporting people, whatever their background, whatever their needs. So again, we've tried to look at all different ways to engage people, and we've had a session that Finwell provided on menopause and money, for example, neurodiversity, as Hannah spoke about. And also the champion aspect for me has been really important. We've got a fantastic peer support network in our organisation. We've got over 100 peer supporters, employees, whether it's police officers or staff, and they've put themselves forward to be there for people when they're struggling, but to actually give them that extra skill around, as Justine said, if someone as part of that conversation said, do you know what, as well as everything else that's going on for me, I'm also struggling with my finances. We've provided that course for a number of people who are now Finwell champions. So it just means that they just feel a bit more empowered. So, for example, I had a member of staff come to me last week who was just going through a really difficult breakup, had been in a domestic abuse scenario. And one of the big things that she was facing was around debt. So again, it's just about knowing, Finwell have got some fantastic resources we can signpost them to, and just having that information and knowledge is really important. So yeah, we've got a small number of people that have done the course at the moment, but I'm definitely hoping we can roll that out, because I just think it's so important.
Can I just add something to that? Another area that we found it's been particularly useful is people who are now finding themselves as carers from an elder care perspective. And again, we have a small carers drop-in session that we run. And financial well-being for that group has also been incredibly important, and even if that's around how do you access funding for different situations that you might find yourself in if you're now caring for an elder, and that's something which we're finding is coming through more and more as well.
I think what we're basically saying is that poor financial well-being weaves into every different areas of our lives, and the more people that we can train and upskill in order to give that support and that effective signposting. I think it's also important because when I always remember somebody coming to me once saying, I've got all these arrears on my mortgage, Justine, what do I do? And her next question was, are you going to tell my boss? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to tell your boss. But the fear of the boss knowing or my employer knowing that I've got some issue, whatever that issue might be, is huge. And that's where champions can come in and help and support.
Yeah, I was going to say, and also the one-to-one service that you're able to support, that you're able to offer, from Finwell. It means that, again, even if we're just kind of getting an inkling from someone that they might have some financial difficulties, it means that we can send them, via the one-to-one service that Finwell offer. It's that I think I'm hoping that they feel that that's more of a space where they can share
safe
that.
space. Yeah,
it's options, isn't it, for people to talk to someone they feel comfortable with. And with the one-to-one coaching sessions that we've had from Finwell, we've put a form on our intranet, for example, so people can request a one-to-one through that form. So if they're not comfortable talking to one of the mental health first aiders or their manager, they can fill that form out. They know it only comes to me, and then we literally get them set up straight away with a one-to-one. So I think giving people as many different avenues to have this conversation as possible is really important.
And just coming back to the financial wellbeing champions or upskilling of mental health first aiders, it's a big responsibility. They do this on top of their day job, right? They're not paid anymore for being a champion or whatever you want to call them. So actually, we find it's really important that not only they have the training, but they have the ongoing support and the ongoing community. The topic of money is so broad. You can't expect a champion to know absolutely everything about everything. So one of the things we pride ourselves in is knowing that the champions are part of that ongoing learning process, part of a wider community. They have access to our coaches in different financial areas that they can get hold of, because there's a lot of imposter syndrome in this space. I don't know whether you guys have seen this, but I certainly hear people saying to me, well, how can I help someone else when I'm rubbish at managing money? Or how can I give someone help with gambling when I've got a gambling problem? So actually we want to help those people. We want to help them improve their own financial well-being, as well as being able to support others in the workplace. So I think it's important to know you're not just going to fix this with a 2-hour training session. It has to be ongoing upskilling over the longer term. Now, you've touched on one-to-ones, and I want to just touch again on this, because colleagues are not necessarily going to open up to a complete stranger, okay? They're definitely not going to open up to their boss for fear of the job. But what we're trying to achieve here is not financial advice, okay? This is financial signposting, financial support. It's guiding people. It's empowering people to take those next steps for themselves, rather than just thinking my employer's going to fix it for me. And we've had a lot of success with both of you, haven't we, in that one-to-one space. And actually, sometimes people just want a bit of reassurance that they're not alone and that there is support out there.
Yeah, and I think it's about, again, Finwell provide a huge range of different workshops. So we've tried to, within the ongoing wellbeing support that we're offering, we're trying to make sure that we're covering all kinds of different topics, that people can access it from our intranet that we have, but also that we use the posters that Finwell have with the QR codes. Yeah. So again, people can they don't have to tell anyone else. They can just go up and scan the QR code and access all that information. And I really like it because it's appealing to young people. There's just sort of short clips. People in our organisation do not have time to sit down and spend 2 hours, attending a webinar. Yeah. So again, we've got recordings, we've got short clips and education, and just that signposting, so that they're not feeling alone, basically.
And I think both of you, my advice would be to everyone, is to have a holistic approach to this. It's not a one size fits all. It's such a complex area, and I know, Hannah, I'm going to ask you now what your top tips are. But where do we start with all of this? What's your top tips?
First of all, have a look at what you've already got, because you will probably find that in amongst some of your benefits or whatever else you already have in existence, you've probably got quite a lot of things that might be useful, or additional free services that you can get from some of your providers. And that was our sort of step one. It was, let's have a look at what we've already got and let's make that accessible for our employees, because we all know that engagement is a challenge with all of these topics. So what have we got, and is it easily accessible, I think is my absolute first tip. Second tip, I think, is around finding somebody or some people in your organisation that are willing to talk openly about their own situation, because we talk about this in different aspects of health and well-being, and financial well-being is no different, but storytelling is incredibly powerful. Yeah. And having somebody from your organisation share their experience, whatever that might be, whether it might be reevaluating finances following a divorce, saving for, buying a property or getting married. It can be good or bad reasons. It doesn't have to be somebody telling you a really terrible thing that happened to you. It can just be about setting some money aside because you want to get married or buy a house or something. Those stories are really powerful. And then my third tip would be around, as Justine has just alluded to, but I really want to sort of hone in on this point. Employee resource groups, mental health first aiders, networks, all of those things are incredibly powerful, but you have to look after them, and you have to make sure that they are very clear on their role. Boundaries are so important, because you can feel this enormous sense of responsibility if you think you are now responsible for the financial well-being of your colleagues, which is absolutely not what being a champion is about. So I think reaffirming those boundaries and really making sure that your network or champions have the skills and expertise, they understand their remit, and that there is a process around that to keep those people safe and look after their health and well-being, because you don't want them suffering as a result of helping and supporting others.
Brilliant. And just start somewhere, I think.
Just start. You're never going to have all the answers for any of the challenges that are going to be discussed today, I think, across all of the different workshops.
Yeah.
You just have to get started.
Okay. And Natasha, finally, what are your top tips for getting started with kind of getting this embedded as part of your culture and as part of your employee benefits package?
Yeah, so I would say, again, just normalising that conversation. Communication is the key, isn't it? I don't know about anyone else, but we really struggle with getting things out and kind of, I still have conversations with people now that say, oh, I didn't even realise we offered that. So we send out a newsletter every month, but then we try and make a feature around financial well-being. When we're delivering presentations, again, it might be a presentation about some different aspect of well-being, but then we'll mention about the fact that, if you've got any issues around finances, this is how you can access it. Constantly kind of signposting it in different ways. And then I would say, just being really open and giving people a compassionate space. So we run monthly talk cafes on lots of different areas of wellbeing. And again, within those, so we've got one on caring responsibilities that Hannah mentioned. And as you say, finances links in really well to that. So within the monthly talk cafe, that then creates a Teams chat. So in that Teams chat, we can share information that Finwell provide us, around helping you to manage that. So it's just trying to think of all the different angles rather than just sending out an email. How else can we do it? So again, the bright posters, all of that is attracting people.
So trying to weave it in as part of business as usual, rather than it being, here's a financial webinar.
Definitely.
Okay, I'm hearing you. Okay, so brilliant. Thank you so much to Natasha and Hannah. Now, we are going to take some questions in a moment, but before I do, I wanted to just share with you what Financial Wellbeing Month 2025 looks like, and it's coming up in April. And if you haven't already registered your company for free, please take a copy of that QR code or come and talk to one of the guys on the stand here, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people to talk about money. We're trying to open up that conversation. We're trying to give people some of the tools and the resources that you might need, and we're going to give you a load of free webinars during April. We're going to run about 10, I think it is, different topics and themes. You can make those available to your colleagues during April so that you can see the education, guidance and support work that can be done for your organisation. As a leader, you'll also have access to a free place on our financial and mental health awareness training. We run these every month, so come along and check us out and see what we're all about. And then finally, we want to get this conversation going in the industries. So we are going to be running some sector-specific roundtables during April for different sectors, of which Hannah's going to run one, and so is Natasha, just so that we can start to share some best practice, share some learns, share some challenges, just to really help and support each other going forward, because this is not going away. And if anyone tells me that the cost of living crisis is nearly over, forget it. It's just not true. Okay, thank you to you guys. Now, has anyone got any questions? Pop your hand up and I will pass the mic over to Artie. Right, Artie.
Thank you for that. As a business owner with MHF aiders, I can see the natural progression to champions. Would you suggest that they are all upskilled, or a proportion, a ratio? How would you work that out?
Okay, so I think what we've got to remember that a lot of mental health first aiders do this as a side hustle to their day job. They don't necessarily get paid more. So I think it's people that have stories of their own to tell. Their own lived experience, I think, is hugely important in this space. I would start small and build up over time, and I would also include leaders and managers. If you're managing a team of people and you're in a performance conversation and they suddenly say, I'm going through divorce and I've got no money to put food on the table, leaders need to know what to do and how to support as well. So I would say start small. I don't know whether you guys would agree, start small and build it up.
Yeah, we made sure that we'd got a small proportion of our mental health first aiders that had been through the training. And we also made sure some of our HR business partners who are often having these kind of conversations had also been through the training. But you're right, it's just a wide range. Clearly, the more the better. But from a financial perspective, our budget didn't stretch that far. So having a handful who are well signposted internally so that other mental health first aiders can reach out to them if they want to try and sort of refer someone on.
Yeah, and I would only just add to that it's, you've got to make sure they're comfortable with doing it. So not everyone will be comfortable about talking about finances. So rather than say, because you're a wellbeing champion or because you're a mental health first aider, you will be doing this. I think ask for volunteers, and then that you're going to be getting people that really want to do it. I think definitely starting small. And
I think that my parting comment would also be, this is about building a community. This is not just one piece of training and off you go and you've got the answers to everything, because that's not the case. So we're very keen to grow the community, give them the support that they need. The training in different financial areas needs to be ongoing. So great question though, thank you. Right, any other questions from the audience? Anyone else want to jump in? Okay. Hi.
Maybe getting through to maybe new employees or new recruits or employees like in their 20s or 30s, because what we sometimes find is people think financial well-being is for retirement, pensions, stuff like that.
Yeah, and
that was found that.
Yeah, that was definitely a challenge that we had, because absolutely, certainly historically in our profession, it was you do your 30 years in the police, and then towards the end you start talking about how am I going to manage that. So yeah, I've had that conversation with our new recruits, as I say, that are coming in maybe 18, 19 even, and actually are facing completely different financial challenges than we faced when we first started. So I think the short, sharp videos that Finwell provide, that you can get access via YouTube. As I say, having the QR codes up, I go and talk to all new recruits. And so this will be an element. I've got to cover every area of wellbeing, but financial, wellbeing will be a key part of that. And I will also talk to them right from the beginning, let's take away the stigma. If at any point during your career you have an issue around finances, then come and talk to someone, and that's okay. So I think, again, if we can embed it at a really early stage in their career, hopefully that then carries through.
Yeah, and I just want to echo that. It's a very vulnerable group, that young adult space coming straight out of education into first careers, early careers. So the more we can do to make that part of an induction process, I do a lot of training in that young adult space, and they haven't got a clue about how to understand a pay slip, or why am I putting this amount towards a pension that's going to be 40, 50 years down the line. So the more we can weave it into different areas is huge, and it's a shame there isn't more on the curriculum through our education. I've got a teenage daughter and she's got absolutely nothing. She thinks money grows in my purse. But we need to get that. We need to break that cycle. So, yeah, great question. Okay, any other questions? Hiya.
How do you go about engaging in-office workers versus remote workers? And do you find that there's a difference between the two in terms of engagement and how you get them involved in these sorts of things?
So we, again, just try a multitude of different ways to engage people. We have a hybrid working model, so we have occasions where people are in or they're not in. They're rarely all in at the same time. So it's making things as accessible as possible. And similar to what Natasha said, if you go into any of our kitchens, you'll find posters up with QR codes, but we will also run a lot of virtual sessions so that people can dial in from anywhere. We've got about 75 offices from a UK perspective, so it's not like everyone's in one location anyway. We are spread out across the whole of the UK and Ireland, so those virtual sessions are really important, as well as we have an inclusion hub, which is similar to an intranet, really making sure all of the information on there is up to date and updated regularly, and just weaving it into all of the comms. We also have a monthly newsletter about people and culture generally, and we always put something in there about financial wellbeing every single month, just to have that continuous drip feeding of where to find the information as and when you need it, because that's the other thing, right? People generally don't access this information until they need it. So then it needs to be as easy to find as possible, because they're likely to be not in the best possible place when they actually need it.
Go on, Natasha.
I would just say as well that we obviously we've got staff that do work remotely, that are, sometimes in the office. Geographically, we're enormous. So Devon, Cornwall and Dorset is massive. So there's no way physically that we could get round to all of those places. So again, the online world that we now live in has actually been massively beneficial to us. So I run an annual virtual Wellbeing Festival, which is 2 weeks in October, open to all UK police forces and other blue light And again, that kind of sort of calling it a festival, having different sessions throughout those 2 weeks, it will attract a different set of people. And we also record all of our sessions that we possibly can. And again, so constantly in all our training, we'll be signposting people to the recordings. So, if someone's working a night shift and they get maybe a little bit of downtime, they might be able to then go on and watch a recording from something they missed earlier. So, yeah, again, it's just trying to sort of think of different ways to engage you no matter what the role you're doing.
My other added nugget would just be you have to have a holistic approach to this because of the differing needs of people. And we often go in and do like health clinics, like a financial health clinic, going into offices or into porter cabins on construction sites to know that someone's going to be there. You can talk to them about anything you like in confidence. I think there's still a place for that in terms of face-to-face support as well as all the other things the girls have said. So brilliant. Okay, any other questions from the group? Hello. I think we'll make this the last one, otherwise I'm going to get kicked in.
Hi, I went for NHS Trust, so we're quite a multinational trust and get a lot of people who are new to the UK. Yeah. And obviously our financial rules and regulations are very different to where they come from. Is there any specific kind of support or signposting we can use for that demographic?
Do you want to answer that in terms of any coming into your industries?
Yeah, I mean, we do link in with the other departments in terms of inclusion and diversity. So yeah, to be honest, it's probably an area that we need to do more work on because we are exactly the same. So no, I mean, I would just say it's about, this is ever developing and, it might be another workshop that actually we need to sort of think. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, it's a really good question. And we're, all of our services that we offer around wellbeing, we're always developing it. So actually that's probably something that we can take away and kind of look at further.
So to reassure you, we have worked with a number of NHS trusts already. One in particular that sticks in my mind is Moorfields Eye Hospital in London. They have a very diverse group of non-English speaking colleagues and actually just helping them through one-to-one sessions. They have hardship funds that they offer to NHS colleagues and as part of their application process, having access to a one-to-one to talk about their circumstances. But, financial education, guidance and support is relevant for everyone, whatever your background, no matter what your earnings or where you're from. So, but yeah, we're doing some work in that space, but great question. Right, now listen, thanks ever so much for joining, and thank you so much to Natasha and to Hannah as well. If you want to talk to us some more, we're right behind you here on stand 26, but just brilliant. Thanks for coming. All right, cheers.